So what's the first big idea for leading small? What's the first thing that you need to know if you want to be an effective small group leader in Shiloh? Well, the first thing is this. If you want to be the best small group leader ever, you need to, number one, be present. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to break it down for you. What that really means is this. You have to show up. You got to show up for your students. And there's 3 ways in particular that we want our leaders to show up for our students. And so this is what we're talking about. When you choose to be present, that means you, number one, show up predictably. Remember in our first video, we talked about how our goal as leaders at Shiloh is to build relationships with students to help students grow in their relationship with God. So it's all about building relationship. It's all about growing close with students so that we can have the opportunity to influence their lives towards following Jesus and becoming disciples after Him. And so here's the thing. Why is it important to show up predictably? You cannot build relationships without trust, and you can't build trust without showing up predictably and consistently in a student's life. And for us, that's why making a weekly commitment to Shiloh every Monday night is so important. The fact of the matter is, if we're going to make long-lasting impact in the lives of our students, Monday nights have to be a priority every single week. But that's only the first way we need to show up for students. We want to show up for students by showing up predictably, but we also are going to show up for students by showing up mentally. Write that down. Show up mentally. Now, what do I mean when I say show up mentally? Well, what I mean is this. Remember the big picture, the big idea, the main goal. We are wanting to build relationships with students to help students grow in their relationship with God. So what does it mean to show up mentally? This is what it means. It means making sure that you keep the why at the forefront of your mind at all times, and allow the why, allow the big picture reason that we're doing youth ministry to influence the way you act in every single environment in Shiloh. The fact of the matter is, if the reason you are in Shiloh is to build relationships with students, to help students be in relationship with God, grow as disciples of Jesus, then we need to, every single Monday night, be looking for any opportunity to maximize how we can help accomplish that goal. And that means being mentally engaged in every single part of the night. That means being mentally engaged at team rally, showing up on time at 6:45, ready to be a part of the team in everything that we're doing as we go through the run-through of the night, as we encourage you and challenge you and take time to pray. You need to be engaged mentally in that space. That means being engaged mentally when we're hanging out with students before the service, finding a student, looking them in the eye, asking them intentional questions about their day. How are you doing? Being encouraging, looking for newcomers. It means being mentally engaged when we transition into our youth service. When the music is playing, we want to be worshiping God with so much passion, showing our students what it looks like to worship God with passion. We want to be engaged when we play games and when we share announcements. We want to show our students what it looks like to have fun and not care about what other people think about us. When the pastor or a guest speaker is bringing the teaching, we want to make sure that we're leaning in, taking notes, amening, being a part of what's happening in that moment. Again, modeling for our students what it looks like to be engaged in a youth service. And last but not least, when we go to small group time and we spend time in circles with our students asking questions about the message, we want to make sure, we're not on our phones. We're not daydreaming about something else. We want to look students in the eye. We want to ask good questions and help them start to talk about faith. We want to help them have space where they can pray with one another and bring requests to us so that we can show support for one another. It's so important for us to not just show up predictably. We want to show up mentally. By consistently showing up in the lives of your students, both physically and mentally, you will start to build trust. It won't happen automatically, but it will happen eventually. And as you build trust, genuine relationships will form. And it's in that place that you will have opportunity to help students be in relationship with God. And we as a group will win as we watch our students take steps towards owning their faith. Last but not least, the last way we want you as leaders to show up is this. We want you to show up predictably. We want you to show up mentally. And lastly, we want you to show up randomly. You know, I remember when I was a student in Shiloh, and some of the most impactful moments for me was when my pastor and when my small group leaders not just spent time with me in the youth night, but it was the times when they would go out of their way to surprise me and spend time with me during the week, in the regular run of my life. I remember one time I was playing basketball on my junior high team, and we were at a school in Fall River, and I was so surprised when I looked out of the corner of my eye and saw my youth pastor standing there on the sidelines showing us support. It made me feel so special, and what it did for me is it made me realize, like, wow, my pastor actually cares about me. He's not just showing up weekly in our programmed time when he's required to be there. He's taking an extra step of initiative and showing me that he cares so much about me. He wants to be involved in my life outside of Shiloh. And so we want to encourage you as a youth leader. Some of the most amazing moments are going to come when you take the initiative to show up randomly in a student's life. Never underestimate the power of showing up randomly. And for you, showing up randomly is going to look different in all sorts of ways, depending on your students, depending on what they're interested in. But showing up randomly, let me give you a few examples of what this might look like. Showing up randomly could be making a phone call, maybe sending a birthday card, showing up to cheer them on at a sports game. Maybe it's sending a text message at the beginning of the week encouraging them. Maybe it's inviting them to come and run some errands with you on a Saturday. Maybe it's taking them out to lunch after church with another one of your leaders. The fact of the matter is there's all sorts of ways that you can show up randomly in your student's life, and we want to encourage you to take initiative and be creative. The fact of the matter is showing up randomly creates organic opportunities for your relationship with your students to grow and for their connection to your small group and our church to grow. And so, the first big idea you want to know as a small group leader in Shiloh is this. You need to be present. And by being present, you choose to show up for students. That means, number one, showing up for students predictably. Number two, showing up for students mentally. And number three, showing up for students randomly. I would invite you to check out our next video as we look at the second big idea that you need to know as a small group leader in our ministry.